Hello and welcome to the Peppermint Sunflower channel, where we pair video of the beautiful natural world with calming narration of classic literature. In this latest chapter, Conrad describes in some detail the members of the Tremolino syndicate. And now, over to Joseph Conrad. We four formed, to use a term well understood nowadays in every social sphere, a syndicate owning the Tremolino, an international and astonishing syndicate. And we were all ardent royalists of the snow-white legitimist complexion, heaven only knows why. In all associations of men there is generally one who, by the authority of age and of a more experienced wisdom, imparts a collective character to the whole set. If I mention that the oldest of us was very old, extremely old, nearly 30 years old, and that he used to declare with gallant carelessness, "I live by my sword," I think I have given enough information on the score of our collective wisdom. He was a North Carolinian gentleman. JMKB were the initials of his name, and he really did live by the sword as far as I know. He died by it too, later on, in a Balkanian squabble, in the cause of some Serbs or else Bulgarians, who were neither Catholics nor gentlemen, at least not in the exalted but narrow sense he attached to that last word. Poor JMKB, Américain, Catholique, et gentilhomme, as he was disposed to describe himself in moments of lofty expansion. Are there still to be found in Europe gentlemen keen of face and elegantly slight of body, of distinguished aspect, with a fascinating drawing-room manner, and with a dark, fatal glance, who live by their swords, I wonder? His family had been ruined in the Civil War, I fancy, and seems for a decade or so to have led a wandering life in the old world. As to Henry C., the next in age and wisdom of our band, he had broken loose from the unyielding rigidity of his family, solidly rooted, if I remember rightly, in a well-to-do London suburb. On their respectable authority, he introduced himself meekly to strangers as a black sheep. I have never seen a more guileless specimen of an outcast. Never. However, his people had the grace to send him a little money now and then. Enamoured of the south, of Provence, of its people, its life, its sunshine and its poetry, narrow-chested, tall and short-sighted, he strode along the streets and the lanes, his long feet projecting far in advance of his body, and his white nose and gingery moustache buried in an open book, for he had the habit of reading as he walked. How he avoided falling into precipices, off the quays or down staircases, is a great mystery. The sides of his overcoat bulged out with pocket editions of various poets. When not engaged in reading Virgil, Homer or Mistral, in parks, restaurants, streets and such like public places, he indited sonnets in French to the ears, eyes, chin, hair and other visible perfections of a nymph called Thérèse, the daughter, honesty compels me to state, of a certain Madame Lenoir, who kept a small café for sailors in one of the narrowest streets of the old town. No more charming face, clear-cut like an antique gem and delicate in colouring like the petal of a flower, had ever been set on, alas, a somewhat squat body. He read his verses aloud to her in the very café with the innocence of a little child and the vanity of a poet. We followed him there willingly enough, if only to watch the divine Thérèse laugh under the vigilant black eyes of Madame Lenoir, her mother. She laughed very prettily, not so much at the sonnets, which she could not but esteem, as at poor Henry's French accent, which was unique, resembling the warbling of birds, if birds ever warbled with a stuttering nasal intonation. Our third partner was Roger P. de la S., the most Scandinavian-looking of Provençal squires, fair and 6 feet high, as became a descendant of sea-roving Northmen. Authoritative, incisive, wittily scornful, with a comedy in 3 acts in his pocket, and in his breast a heart blighted by a hopeless passion for his beautiful cousin, married to a wealthy hide and tallow merchant. He used to take us to lunch at their house without ceremony. I admired the good lady's sweet patience. The husband was a conciliatory soul with a great fund of resignation, which he expended on Roger's friends. I suspect he was secretly horrified at these invasions, but it was a Carlist salon, and as such we were made welcome. The possibility of raising Catalonia in the interest of Rey Neto, who had just then crossed the Pyrenees, was much discussed there. Don Carlos, no doubt, must have had many queer friends. It is the common lot of all pretenders, but amongst them none more extravagantly fantastic than the Tremolino syndicate, which used to meet in a tavern on the quays of the old port. The antique city of Massilia had surely never, since the days of the earliest Phoenicians, known an odder set of shipowners. We met to discuss and settle the plan of operations for each voyage of the Tremolino. In these operations a banking house too was concerned, a very respectable banking house. But I am afraid I shall end by saying too much. Ladies too were concerned. I really am afraid I'm saying too much. All sorts of ladies, some old enough to know better than to put their trust in princes, others young and full of illusions. One of these last was extremely amusing in the imitations she gave us in confidence of variously high-placed personages she was perpetually rushing off to Paris to interview in the interests of the cause. Poor El Rey! For she was a Carlist, and of Basque blood at that, with something of a lioness in the expression of her courageous face, especially when she let her hair down, and with the volatile little soul of a sparrow dressed in fine Parisian feathers, which had the trick of coming off disconcertingly at unexpected moments. But her imitations of a Parisian personage, very highly placed indeed, as she represented him standing in the corner of a room with his face to the wall, rubbing the back of his head and moaning helplessly, "Rita, you are the death of me," were enough to make one, if young and free from cares, split one's sides laughing. She had an uncle still living, a very effective Carlist too, the priest of a little mountain parish in Guipuscoa. As the sea-going member of the syndicate, whose plans depended greatly on Donna Rita's information, I used to be charged with humbly affectionate messages for the old man. These messages I was supposed to deliver to the Aragonese muleteers, who were sure to await at certain times the Tremolino in the neighbourhood of the Gulf of Rosas, for faithful transportation inland, together with various unlawful goods landed secretly from under the Tremolino's hatches. Well, now, I really have let out too much, as I feared I should in the end, as to the usual contents of my sea cradle. But let it stand, and if anybody remarks cynically that I must have been a promising infant in those days, let that stand too. I am concerned but for the good name of the Tremolino, and I affirm that a ship is ever guiltless of the sins, transgressions, and follies of her men. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed both the chapter and the video. If you have any suggestions for classic books you would like to hear read on this channel, please drop a note in the comments below. Episodes are uploaded every Sunday. Please do subscribe to make sure you don't miss them.